Welcome to the Once and Future Authors Podcast. I'm Stephanie, and I am so excited today to be joined by truly one of my favorite authors. She's the author of Secrets of the Italian Island. I just heard there's a part two, so I know what I'm going to be doing this weekend. And I'm so excited to introduce Barbara Josselsohn. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to see you and be here.
Absolutely. And I loved your last series and now a new series. So you're going to have to catch our viewers up. Can you just bring us back to when you first started writing? Because you've been quite prolific.
Yeah, I mean, what better way is there to spend time than storytelling? That's my view. So, so yeah, my first book was published in 2015. That was called The Last Dreamer, contemporary women's fiction, which is the genre I continued with over the next couple of years. I then had 4 books that were part of what we called the Lake Summer series. It was a series of women's fiction, again, contemporary, that took place in this small fictional town of Lake Summers. There are 4 books there. The Lilac House, they had plant and flower titles. The Lilac House, the Bluebell Girls, the Lily Garden, and the Cranberry Inn, which is a Christmassy kind of story. And I guess about 2 years ago, I'd always wanted to write historical fiction, and I just thought it was a good time for me to really dig into something different. I really thought World War II fiction was a good place for me. I was lucky to have an editor who agreed that this should be my next move. And so I began working on World War II. And I can tell you a little bit about the inspiration, what inspired this series. But we call it the Sisters of War series, and it mostly revolves around 3 sisters who are on an island in the Mediterranean, off the Italian coast, during the darkest days of World War II, and they become separated. And each book in the series, the one that came out in May, which you've got, the one that came out this week, and the one that'll come out next summer, follows the story of each of the sisters as they got separated. And they're dual timeline stories. So each story also has a present day heroine who, for various reasons, their own reasons, becomes involved in discovering what the story is for that particular sister, and finds that they have their own particular reason for wanting to discover that sister's story. So that's basically what it's about. So Secrets of the Italian Island is the oldest sister, Annalisa, and the present day heroine is Mia. And
Love her, love her, and love the idea. I mean, I bringing us back to inspiration. So you decided, I'm going to write historical fiction, and I'm going to do World War II. Like, did you go to Italy? Were you on an island? Did you get hit by a rock when you were walking to Pompeii? Like, how do these things come to you?
That's, well, I think what I did, I mean, I had traveled to Italy in the past, and I had my memories and my experiences that have just stuck with me and tucked away in the diary I kept during that time. But I was hunting around for a story that might inspire me. I just in that beginning, early brainstorming time, that's the most earliest time of a book, and I came across a really interesting story. There of an island. This, actually, I transported it. This is an island off the coast of Brittany.
Okay.
It was called the island of Costières, and it's French. It had such an interesting history. It was acquired in right before the turn of the 20th century by a Polish inventor named Bruno Abakanowicz,
Wow.
who built a beautiful castle there, and you can see it. It's on the it's easily found online, and it became kind of a refuge, a haven, a a place where writers and sculptors and artists would go and do their best work. There was a Nobel Prize winning novel written there, among other great works. And so it was kind of this artist retreat, special place. Think of like a Shangri-La or a Camelot. This is what came to my mind. It was requisitioned by the Nazis in World War II. The castle was damaged, ultimately sold. It's a private island now and a private castle. You can see it, but you can't get onto it. And I was just kind of struck by the idea of this beautiful, creative place that nurtured and inspired people to do their best work. And then just, to suddenly no longer exist. And I thought that was so, so sad and so moving. And, who would be the people who would have gone to that island, and who would have worked there, who would have staffed the castle, who would have, been starstruck by the people there, and who would have owned the castle? What would this man have been like, this person who kind of, became the host for these artists? And that was kind of the genesis. This is the island. The three sisters sneak onto the island. I won't tell you why. And they have there's a connection between them and the owner of this castle, whom they've never met. And I won't tell you what the connection is either, but they find their way into this castle and into this beautiful, inspiring, creative place surrounded by brilliance. And then disaster hits, and they end up having to flee and getting separated. But that was really where it started. How do you live in a world where there's such beauty and imagination, and then it ends? So that's really it.
New Island, the one that's off Brittany, because you moved it. You picked up the
I
island.
did. I moved it because I can.
It's wonderful because I can. Well, I should put that on a mug for every writer.
Because I can. Not many things you can say that about, but
no, well, it's funny because I was going to ask you about, whether you feel kind of, or where that line is, when you're writing historical fiction. And this really goes for any fiction, even your original series that takes place in a small town. Is it in the Adirondacks? I remember feeling like it was in the Adirondacks. Maybe that was just my own.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's a fictional town, but that was where it was.
That's where it was. That's what I thought. I could almost picture it where I have an aunt and uncle who have a cottage up there. Really? When I was reading it, I was like, I know that place.
Oh, yay.
No, you really captured it, which was lovely. But now you're moving an island. Like, how do you know as an author when you're writing, you're researching, you have to keep the facts. Like World War I has to start and end on the right dates.
Right. Right.
Certain things have to be correct, but then other things you get to play with. I mean, I know that besides being an accomplished writer, you're also, a teacher, which helps with these questions. Like, how does somebody who wants to write, where is that line? Like, you better stick to the facts, but I just moved the whole island and it's okay.
Right. That's I really encourage, because I do teach historical novel writing, and I think that one of the pitfalls is to get so caught up in the research that you never really write the story, or you get scared. How can I say this? How can I put this? I think you kind of have to give yourself freedom to write the story. I mean, at the end of the day, a story is about people, fictional or not. A story is about characters and interactions and relationships and growth. And that's timeless. So once I knew the parameters of the castle, the island, the reason the sisters went there, I really let them take off and become real people, and and have their story. The research came at that point. I mean, yes, the dates were very, very important. Italy has a very complex history as far as World War II goes. They were allied with Germany in the beginning, and then surrendered to the Americans, and then they were invaded by the Nazis. So, and then Rome was captured and occupied. All this took place. The surrender and the occupation was like within a couple of days. I mean, very, very quick in the fall of 1943. So that's really important. And those dates, obviously are really important. And that particular event was going to have, or those events were going to have huge consequences for my character. So that's really important. And I took some classes. And I have a list of a bibliography in the back of the book, because that was really, really important for me. And I have a journalism background. So, it's that kind of thing of what I need to really, really get right is just ingrained in me. The other part, the interesting part had to do, I think, so once I had the facts of the historical down and I had the characters down, for me, writing is fun. It really is fun. And part of the interest and the fun was starting to really get, what did the clothes look like? And what were they made out of? And what did they eat? And what would the castle have had? What kind of electricity? What kind of lighting? What kind of flooring? What did they read? Would they have newspapers? Would they, magazines? Where did they get their news? And how did supplies come? What were the boats like? So that was all really interesting. And I kind of tried to get a feel for what that would be sort of along the way. I mean, that's kind of the part where I'm writing the story and I want to describe what she looks like. And that might send me on like a 2-day hunt about clothing, and looking at pictures, looking through books, whatever I could find. So, but I will say, I came, that was kind of interesting. That's the part where it's kind of, you're kind of in two worlds at once, because you're writing and then you're researching and then you're filling in. And I remember one of the things was that I had a character leaving a note for another character, hiding it away toward the end of the book. And I'm thinking, did he use a Sharpie? Probably not. A ballpoint pen, a fountain pen, a quill? Probably not. A pencil? What would have been available as a writing implement? And I remember I spent a whole day reading the history of Bic pens, because and it became so interesting, and just to get a feel for how popular that pen was and what the pen would have looked like, so you really can go down rabbit holes with this.
That's what I was going to ask. Is that you can avoid writing the book. You could just stare at
right, just But now I look at a pen these days and I'm like, because it's not just a pen anymore. I've got, this is just, all the innovation that went into this thing that I, pick up like nothing. So anyway, that's kind of the interesting part. But I think that what I try to say when I'm teaching that it's about balance. You can't ignore but you can't just end up overwhelmed by having too much research. And I think also sometimes another pitfall is to kind of get married to your research, where you have all these interesting facts. You got to use them. But the thing is, you don't got to use them. Yeah. You probably don't have to use most of it. It doesn't mean anything to the story. It was just part of, the pre-writing. So it's, it's just keeping an eye on yourself, I think.
No, it's very hard to know when to stop with that. All of a sudden, someone thought they were going to write historical fiction and they're writing a history book.
It's real. Yeah, it's really true. I think the thing is, intuition is kind of a great thing sometimes. And I feel like if you really listen to yourself inside, people do a lot of research sometimes because they're scared to write, because they're, that's a scary, but I think if you really listen to yourself, at some point, that voice inside of you says, okay, you have enough. You're good. You're in a good place now. And And I think you have to listen to that voice. And that's what I wait for. I wait for the feeling when I'm not like, I don't know anything, to the voice that says, okay, you're grounded.
Well, Barbara, I think the fact that you have that voice is what makes you what makes you so successful. Because I know many, many people who are writing who don't have a voice telling them to
Yeah.
stop and publish the darn thing or whatever.
I know. Although maybe it is, I don't know. Maybe, or maybe you acquire it. Maybe it's something that you acquire.
It could be something you acquire, and it could be something that some people really are never going to have instinctively, and it has to be either taught, or they have to kind of deadline themselves.
Right. Or, sometimes it's just a trusted voice that says, okay,
I mean,
you're good. Put the
isn't
book
it a little bit like gluttony?
away.
I mean, if there's a bowl of barbecue potato chips, that little voice that tells me to stop eating never clicks
Right.
on.
I know, right?
So the fact that you have that voice and have that balance, I think is not something that every single person has, because like you called it, the rabbit hole, there are many people who are in that rabbit hole 24/7.
And it's not a comfortable place to be, it's kind of, it is around. That's exactly what it is.
I
So
mean, it is, but I mean, how many people, instead of ending up with a book series, could just simply, really rock at Jeopardy in the category of World War II in Italy, but not really write a book? So,
yeah, rock and Jeffer. That's so funny.
I mean, there's that. So
Uh-huh.
I don't want you to think for a moment, oh, everyone has the gift of knowing when
Okay.
to stop. No, Barbara, that's why you're so good.
Oh, that's so nice. Oh, well, everybody has their, the voice eludes me when it comes to Hershey's Kisses, but it's
Well, that's
there.
why I said barbecue
Yeah,
potato
exactly.
chips.
Chips are, yeah.
There. That's why they're good. They come in small bags.
I know, right? Somebody needs to
Somebody
portion it. I
needs-
agree.
Now, you mentioned you have been to Italy before. Have you been since this book, and now you have another book? Do you have your next book there? Because I don't have it.
I do. This is the next book. This is The Lost Gift to the
Oh, it's
Italian Island.
beautiful,
You can
beautiful.
see it's kind of working
Yes,
with a,
yes.
a theme here.
Mhm.
This is the middle sister, Julia. Your person's younger, or the middle sister of the family. I haven't been back yet, hoping to get there this year. I spent some time in Italy, when I was a college student, spending a semester abroad, and later on traveling for business. I was a reporter for a business newspaper, and did some traveling in Europe, which was great. And a lot of the memories were really helpful to me, including that old diary, because Mia in the first book has never been there
Right. No.
before. So I was able to really, really feel what it's like to be going for the first time. And I also, which was very luckily for me, I had my daughter, one of my kids, my older daughter, coincidentally had taken a trip to Italy for the first time while I was writing it with her boyfriend. And he had been there before, I guess. But I remember sitting them down one evening and really saying to her, okay, what did it feel like when you got off the plane? What was the first thing you noticed? What did you do then? And, she kind of was talking about things like practical things of like how to pay the cab, and and what they saw and what she noticed as they were driving from the airport, and the things that stuck in her head. And it was really helpful, and I really was able to capture a lot of what that first time would be like by kind of reliving it with her. So that was a really helpful thing.
You're reminding me how much the first time I went to Italy, the plane landed, of course, first thing in the morning, usually from America, and got off the plane and changed my clothes. You've been in clothing all night. And there was a little cafe in the airport. And I remember sitting there drinking my cappuccino and thinking, I'm in Italy drinking a cappuccino. I was at the airport. I mean, I hadn't even seen a thing, but I was so excited to be in
It's right.
Italy. And I had a pastry and a cappuccino. I said, this is life. And I never have seen the Milan airport. And I thought, I am living. Boy,
Oh
got
God.
out and actually saw something, but it was just like you're saying. I'm glad you asked those questions.
Yeah.
It
Right. It
was
was
that
just
moment.
all beginning, all new, and I'm really here, That's yeah.
Was. I mean, Italy is just a magical place. It really is. I
Absolutely.
I
Gosh.
am a huge fan personally of any kind of destination literature. And it doesn't have to be a guidebook. I consider yours, in my way, destination literature, because I'm reading about a place that I've either been to or want to go to. And I love place books.
Yeah.
And I love when you get it right, because too often people don't. And I said this about your other series, that I've been to the Adirondacks. I've been there many times, and you nailed it. You
Oh, that's so
absolutely
great.
nailed it. And then I wanted to go back there. Oh my gosh. I wonder which town she was thinking of. Oh, let's go have ice cream in the town, and they're gonna have that picnic on the lawn with the whole town out for the picnic. And I just felt like I've been to that picnic, you know, and I do so
Aw.
appreciate loving when an author nails the place. And as I said, sometimes they take a little bit too much liberty. And I know that there's kind of a line. And even if it's a
Mhm.
fictional place, you made up the town, you moved the island, but you have to capture Italy. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Even if you change the name of every single street, you have to capture Italy, just like getting off the plane. And you did, which is so important.
Oh
People
gosh.
like me who love to travel and love to read.
Yeah, I love to read destination literature too, because that's kind of why, we read. We read to put ourselves in another place, in other, and also to find out what's universal, what stays and what changes. And yeah, there's nothing like getting lost in a book when you're really just feel you've been transported. And you know, that's I love that feeling as a reader, and try really, really hard to see if I could capture it as a
Mhm.
writer. Because it's I mean, there's just nothing. I don't know, reading and writing are just, I mean, stories, right? The stories are what make the world go round.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I'm so delighted, even in this day and age, people have said to me, well, there's the movie. The book is always better.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Oh, I'd love to see this in the movie. And if anybody's watching this would make a heck of a movie.
Oh gosh.
It would
Oh,
make a
that'd
heck
be
of a
nice.
movie. I'm right there for you, and I won't even say on TV that the book is better.
Oh boy.
I'm
Wow.
sure that
I
the
mean, you
movie will be
always
fantastic.
wouldn't that be wonderful?
That'd be amazing. I don't know. Are you a movie person? Who do you see playing the leads?
That's so funny. Whenever I start a book, one of the first things I do is Google a lot of images of celebrities and find out, and start to, figure out, yeah, that looks like her. Why? What is it about her expression? What is it about her look, that makes, um, and it was really fun doing the men leads as well, because I was looking at a lot of like 1940s, 50s
Hmm.
images, like, there's a romantic lead in the 1943 portion, and James Dean, and who else did I find? I mean, he kind of, a very young Paul Newman, and I kind of have a bulletin board up there where I start to put together images of clothing that I want to be able to capture, and faces and buildings and things. And I'm trying to think of, so I think I think Mia, who's the present day heroine, I think in my head she was Emma Stone. So You know, so I get Emma Stone with James Dean. I don't know,
I'll send you a copy.
but yeah, so I do.
Love that. So you have an actual bulletin board, like
I
almost
do.
like a vision board.
Right, right, exactly. I also do it. I have it on even a bigger number of images I put on like a private Pinterest board.
Oh,
But for the really important ones, I love it. I really want it right here. I mean, I'm looking at it right, you know, right on that wall. And you know, it's just, you know, it's I change the order and put things in different places and you know, if there's a dress and I put it with the one, you know, like the old color forms or whatever we used to do. So yeah, I think that maybe because I was a journalist, I'm very, you know, it's easier for me. It's just more comfortable for me to see something and describe it as opposed to, you know, just develop it all in my head. And I'll put somebody's nose with somebody's eyes and somebody else's chin, you know, but it's just to see that kind of is really helpful for me. That's just, it helps me.
you're one of those. Does your vision board also have a full timeline of the entire book, and it starts here? And you one of those, or you?
I do, you know, that's really important in historical. I don't have that on the board, but I do have notebooks where I have like graphs or not graph, like tables where every character, when they were born, what was happening at the time, you know, when they had the kid and then the kid when they were, you know, so I do, I have, and then I do that for the big things. And then I also, because like the secrets, that book takes place maybe in 6 weeks and this one does too, like a very short period of time. So I also have I pulled out calendars from, you know, blank calendars from September 1943 and I fill in each day because it's that stuff is really easy to get wrong, and even if it's corrected, it's really important. It's just helpful to get it right in the beginning because you go through the editorial process and then you end up with a copy editor who's like, but it's Tuesday, you know, how could it be Friday when yesterday was Wednesday, you know? And at that point, when the thing's basically done, you don't want to start having to completely redo the timeline. So I try to be real careful.
You're the first person who has ever mentioned getting a calendar of whatever time period, and you know, jotting it down. That makes so much sense. And I can't believe that I've literally interviewed hundreds of authors and you are the
Well, you know, I guess I'm a little, what is that, a little bit of a control freak? I don't know, but it's really just as a way to keep it, you
great
know,
idea.
yeah, it's really helpful. And then you know, I end up with like these pages. And then you know, if an editor has a question, I always can refer to it, you know, did I do something wrong on the calendar? But
No, that makes perfect
helpful.
sense because, and especially you're juggling in these books the dual timeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I love dual timeline. That's one of my favorite things to read is dual.
It's such an interesting genre because what I find is you can make some really interesting parallels, you know, about, you know, both characters kind of, they're parallel, but they're also, you know, can be experiencing the same things. Like it's just very interesting. Sometimes, even though you're reading the story from 1943, you're kind of thinking, oh, but that's what you know, the woman, the other one was going through too. And it's just, you know, it's just a whole new way of making connections and, you know, revelations. It's
Well, you know, it reminds me of the fact that in real life, you know, these stages of my life that I'm going through, my great grandmother or whoever, the people before us, related and not related, had the same things. You know, we are more alike than we are different. Even people growing up in the middle of the most horrible war that there was were growing up, getting married, having children, even during those terrible times.
yeah, it's really true. And you know, in writing this story, I don't think I did it consciously, but when I was growing up, there were my father had three aunts. His own mother, the fourth sister, had passed away very young. So these three aunts, there were other, you know, they had their own kids, but he was also, their surrogate kid, their special kid, because he was the one without a mother. Anyway, these three aunts, they lived in a apartment building in the Bronx in Ida, Bessie, and Rose. Ida, Bessie, and Rose. And by the time I remember them, I think Ida and Rose were widows by that point, and Bessie was still married. Benny was her husband, but he was kind of everybody's husband and they were old people to me, and that's how I remember them. And it started to be very interesting when I'm writing about these three sisters to say, like, wow, they were all actually quite young at one point in their lives. And, they fell in love, they had children, at some point, I don't even know the whole story. They came to this country. They were all not born here. And the idea that, I never thought of them as being anything other than these very elderly, loving relatives. So it's kind of eye-opening. Now I'm starting to remember gradually all these stories about Bessie, Ida, and Rose. And at least memories are coming back to me now about them.
That'll be the next series.
Yeah. Bessie, Ida, and Rose.
I love that. And I love the way you described him, that he was everybody's husband.
Yeah, Benny. He didn't have to lift a finger. They were all three of them were always there with whatever he needed.
Oh my gosh, I love that. But my family had a couple of sisters in that same way, that you knew them as older people.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were once 20 and falling in love and having their heart broken and all that other.
Right, and having dreams and things they wanted to do. And I know it's
Wild to think about.
it is. It really is. And I've been going through some old photo albums now. This is just inspiring me to kind of look a little more deeply. I have my mother's old photo album. My grandfather was just the most dashing man as a young man, and I never really realized that. So, there's
Wow. And now you've also terrified me, Barbara, because one day we're going to be so old that people are going to say,
that's what they look like.
I might uncover a book or something and say, she was young once.
Exactly, right? Oh boy. They could just have that conversation privately.
Exactly. I don't want to know years from now what they're really saying about.
Exactly.
It's very true. We have a very narrow view of people. If we meet them and they are this age, we have no concept until you write a book like this.
You really, I remember like how when my kids were little, they would always think that the teachers, right, had no lives. They just stayed in the school until
the students
next day when the students came back. Like, teachers didn't get married. Teachers didn't have kids of their own. And it's so funny. Huh?
Ah, no, but we do have a very narrow view of what everyone is like. They are just the way we see them.
The way we see them, right? Until we're forced to look deeper, which is kind of what the book's kind of about.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's one of the reasons why I love Dual Timeline, because you do get to see people in multiple facets,
Yeah.
not just this is what the situation is right now. No, there's a lot more fluidity.
Going into the story. Yeah.
All right, so 1 is out, 2 just came out, and tell me what is where is 3?
Okay, so this is 2. 3 is the story of the youngest sister. Her name is Amelia, and that one will be making its release next summer, sometime next summer. That one's still, Amelia's still in the she's still coming alive at the moment.
Amelia is still a vision board in your room.
Right. She's still on the bulletin board.
Fantastic. I'm super excited about that. For all of our viewers, we have here Secrets of the Italian Island by Barbara Josselsohn. You want to read this first, although I think if you read the next one, it's okay, right?
Exactly. Either way.
Okay. I mean, whatever you happen to find. But I also want to mention that she has another book series, and since it's the holiday season, The Cranberry House is very nice for a holiday read, as is that whole series. So definitely grab a book, and thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the next book.
Oh, such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Great
Thanks.
talking with
Take
you.
care.